Hi, everyone, and welcome to another version of the AtScale Data Driven podcast. I'm Dave Mariani, CTO and co founder of AtScale. And today we have as guests the Hexaware team. So I'd like to introduce you to Rich Williams. Rich is the Senior VP and Head of Partnerships and Strategy. Hey, Rich, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate you having us on today.
Awesome. And then also we have Prashant Dahalkar. So Prashant is the VP of the cloud data practice. So you're the technical guy, Prashant, and you also run the practice when it comes to implementation and the like. So
Thank you,
welcome.
Dave. Thanks for having us, and we're really excited to have a chat.
Okay, so before we sort of get into sort of some of the great things that we've heard about and saw, so I ran into you guys at the Databricks Summit as well as Snowflake. So we just came out of a lot of activity around lots of announcements, lots of new technology, and lots of implications for our data and analytics industry. But before we get there, just tell the listeners a little bit. And maybe Rich, I'll give this to you. Tell us a little bit about what Hexaware does and sort of how do you help your customers?
Sure. Thanks again, David. Hexaware is a large, I'd say medium-sized global technology systems integrator. We work across all different verticals, and I would say our biggest presence you would see in banking, financial services, uh, insurance, healthcare, life sciences. That tends to be sort of the place where you see more of our work. We're about 35,000 people globally. We've got probably 4,000 or 5,000 in North America, another 1,000 or so in Europe, and then the rest are based all around the world, but primarily based out of a couple of large delivery centers in India, one of which is where Prashant works. Company's been around for several decades. We have grown a ton through word of mouth. I would say I call us the quiet company. Uh, I'd never heard of Hexaware before. I started looking for my next career move about a year and a half ago, and it's a great company. It's a great culture, and it's a great place to work. And I think that always helps too when you're trying to get hard things done. Everybody seems to be on the same page here at Hexaware. So I've had a great experience. I've been here 7 months, and I've really enjoyed my entire time here, especially working with people like Prashant who are just can-do, positive, very effective people. So it's been a pleasure to work with him and the rest of our team. And I've really enjoyed it here. But Prashant, anything you want to add to that I missed there?
Prashant, what was your path to get to running services and cloud at Hexaware?
Yeah, so I want to complement what Rich mentioned. Where I came from Cognizant, served in Cognizant for 14 years, and then last 3.5 years I am here at Hexaware. It's a few things which I just want to mention is the revenue wise, though it is 1 point close to 1.45 billion in revenue, but we are very nimble. Take pride in calling ourselves startup with a lot of sticky clients. Most of our clients are maybe 10 plus years associated with us. So naturally, we get into the advisory, area, trying to lead them into what should be their data and AI strategy and all, right? So I think along with that, once, we started this, the data and AI practice separately started around 7 different COEs, and we'll talk about it in the, chat today, but they are really focused on specific partners, specific, tech stack. So that's the approach that we take.
So okay, so let's get into it then. So there was a lot of announcements, a lot of things to digest over the last couple weeks from really sort of the two behemoths in this new data and analytics platform market, the Snowflake and Databricks. They're definitely tit for tat. They definitely are competing with each other. But Prashant, what was some of your takeaways from what you saw in some of those announcements at those shows?
Yeah, sure. So I had been to Snowflake firsthand, and I've heard all the announcements in Databricks. So what I've seen is a lot of consolidation happening with the AI coming in. And when I say consolidation, it's more to do with how do I control the cost, because most of the time, like out of 10, maybe 7 clients will always complain about the cost going up once they go into one of those platforms, and they're not able to figure out what is the reason for it. So two things I would say: they have brought in a lot of automation around how you take care of your assets that you have deployed, so that that cost management is better. And second thing is giving more power to the business user, well, be it quality of the data, or how do you catalog your data so that you know where your data resides, get the best value out of that attributes that you store. So a lot of self-service driven initiatives in both the places. And lastly, maybe I want to mention that they also are diversifying in OLTP space by acquiring some of those the recent acquisitions that they had. So those are the key things that I observed.
Yeah, that's a good takeaways. Yeah, it's they both had although I think Databricks sort of articulated it a little bit better than Snowflake when it came to why Postgres was becoming hosted Postgres or managed Postgres was becoming part of their stack. It's very clear that they really are thinking about using hosted Postgres as their OLTP engines. So that was sort of a big announcement on both of their fronts. So Rich, just from from the business side as a business user, what were some of your takeaways from that you thought would maybe be appealing to people who are trying to get ROI from these investments?
Yeah, I think it's, and even as somebody who uses this stuff myself, right, in my personal life, I think just the speed at which you can move now is just unbelievable. And the tooling, the capabilities these platforms are building inside them to allow, as Prashant was saying, to allow business users to start to make better decisions much faster than they have before, and be able to interact with data in ways that they really haven't been able to do before through just natural language. I mean, the capabilities around this are so impressive now, and it's just come so far. I was even doing some stuff personally over the weekend, making some charts, and this was in GPT. But even just I remember just 6 months ago when I would do the exact same thing, I had to try so many different times to get the chart to, if I wanted to make a small change to a chart, it would redo the chart, but it would completely mess up everything again. It would just kind of forget what it had just done. And today, it's just every single time I ask it to do something, it gets it exactly the way I want it. And so it's amazing to see the progression of the technology so fast in such a short amount of time. That's really exciting. And I think it's really exciting for, I think, business-friendly, business-focused CDOs and CTOs and CIOs who want to deliver results to their business very quickly, because now the tools are really there to put the power into the hands of end users much in a different way than we've had before. And I think that's really exciting, especially if you're a data-savvy business user. It's a very exciting time, because these tools are getting very close to being able to allow the business to interact with data in just ways they've never been able to before, and on the fly, and just it's really amazing to see. And so I was very excited. Both companies had great shows. I enjoyed both experiences a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of hard to miss that sort of general tone about just the speed at which you can do things now is, I mean, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, the focus certainly was around agents and
Yep.
agentic AI, and both Snowflake and Databricks. Databricks, I think they announced Agent Bricks, and
Yeah.
Snowflake doubled down on Cortex. So definitely core sort of investments on that front. They both also announced a semantic layer.
Hmm.
Happy to hear that the industry has finally come along
Yeah.
around to recognizing how important a semantic layer is for really enabling this new motion of agentic AI. Because like
Yeah.
you said it, Rich, it's like people do want to talk to their data. But it's like you can't train an LLM on the internet and expect it to understand an enterprise's core sort of business
Right.
calculations or vernacular. So you need sort of a bridge. So Prashant, I mean, we're sort of moving beyond sort of this AutoML sort of focus, so AI was sort of focused on AutoML and these platforms to sort of make the data scientists more productive by suggesting models and the like. To me, that seems like to gone as sort of like nobody talks about that anymore. right? And everybody's really talking about agents and Gen AI. So what does that mean what's that mean for for your customers out there that are looking sort of to sort of make that transition? What are they doing to jump on this wave of Gen AI?
Okay, so I think in between, like I want to make it three generations. One is where you're doing more pattern based, rule based, coding and getting the insights out of the data. Then we move towards more of Gen AI, like co-pilot based, uh,
Hmm.
uh, insights or acceleration. I would say more than insights, it's more acceleration. But now with agentic, most of our clients, whether it is either think of it as industry specific agents being created for insurance or healthcare or banking. For us in the data and AI space, so when I'm talking about the tech, work that we do in data engineering, every customer, even I had two calls today with different, domain based customers. Both of them talking about MDM, data cataloging lineage, data modeling.
Hmm.
They want to see how agents can be exploited in
Hmm.
order to create the data model. So I'm just giving an example, like we can create a dimensional model from transactional data set using Copilot or GenAI also, any of the models. But now they want to move ahead and see, okay, can I deploy that model? Can I, validate that model? I'm talking about just the data model. For example, like I'm not talking about the semantic model, just the data model. Now, the second piece of it is like, how do I create agents for the business user? The business user gets a big file. They should not rush to the IT and say that, can you fix my data in this big file and then make it usable for some experiment. So they want agents to sniff through the file, to find the pattern, to fix the data. So more outcome driven agents. That also helps in modularizing the work. Earlier, it was like a big size of code that has to be written to do everything. Now you can just write one agent to do specific task and get it done. So to answer your question, most of the clients are moving towards asking more, use cases where the agents can be created and deployed.
Yeah, I mean, it's really pretty exciting when it comes to, somebody like, I'm sure you've been in business intelligence industry for quite some time, and everything was sort of focused on Tableau in terms of point and click and drag and drop, and sort of talking to your data was sort of an afterthought, right? It was almost like just a shortcut. But this really changes everything, and I think that Databricks seem to be being the most aggressive there, in their sort of demo and their investments, and suggesting that there's a new way of doing BI now that and they're sort of trying, I think, to really um, talk about business intelligence differently than what we've been doing for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
So this will be a question for you, Rich. How is that going to change how businesses do business, right? If you got a whole nother way for these people to ask questions of their data.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to speed things up, right? Because you don't have to the ability for these tools to do the work that a technical resource had to do before, right? Previously, if you're a business user and you understand your company's data, you understand your business context, you have all the questions, you know all the questions to ask. You're curious about a lot of things. There's a lot of things you'd like to explore and understand and experiment with in your data. The constraint was always people and skills, right? You always had to have somebody that could do the work for you because you had to take your questions, translate those into some sort of a technical requirement, get those mapped to some sort of a database, and somebody was going to have to do some work and build a pipeline, and it took time, right? And it was that there's a lot of friction in that process that it would take days, weeks, even months, right, to answer sometimes simple questions. And so the speed at which you could turn create insights was affected a lot by that. And that was always a source of frustration in the business too, right? And that's been this universal business versus IT sort of frustration that almost every company has had to face. Today, it's very different because if you have a data savvy business user who they don't know, the only thing is they don't know how to code. But that's not a problem anymore, Because if you can give them an environment with just access to the right data, with like, again, the right language, the semantics, and the common lexicon that everybody understands, they can really start to do, and they can experiment a lot. The amount of things the amount of questions they can answer in a single day is more than what it would have taken them months to answer before. And because the amount of time and energy you have to put into creating just one single answer, that is going to be fascinating to see how that works, right? So I think the speed, so it's going to enable organizations to test a lot of new ideas very quickly, and also get results very quickly, right? So you can see, is this working? It's an army of engineers and analysts really that are at your fingertips. I think that, and they're always available,
Yep.
and
They're
they
working
do what they're
24/7.
told.
Yep.
They're always on 24/7. They don't give you any attitude. They work on weekends. It's they're amazing teammates to have. But yeah, I just think we're at a point now where it's like really real. Just in the last couple of years, I know we've all been talking about GPT and LLMs and GenAI and this stuff, but it feels like we're on the cusp of really being able to use it in an enterprise for a business user, just be able to literally talk to their data. Again, you got to govern though, right? I think that's the big thing. How do you govern things still? How do you make sure that, because I can also see shadow IT spinning up again, right? And on the side, and you have to make sure everything's governed. You have to make sure everything is centralized to a certain extent, but you don't want to have it be a constraint, and you don't want to slow things down either. So I think there's just always that balance of like pushing the envelope on creativity and speed, but also maintaining governance and security and protecting the firm. And so but I think the organizations that are going to really be successful are the ones who walk the fine line between those two things. Like they're not too conservative, but they're conservative enough, right? So I think it's an interesting problem companies are going to have to start thinking about now, to really get the value out of this stuff.
Rich, you said something. You said you don't have to code anymore. And if you even think about even Tableau, you're still sort of coding because you have to write SQL to do your data modeling. We asked. We basically, even these tools are supposed to be great to help business users do analytics. You still have to have a level of technical proficiency and understand data warehouses, even have a connection to a data warehouse, which is itself a big deal. So Prashant, it sounds great, but there's a lot of stuff that has to happen before we can get to that beautiful world that Rich is talking about. So can you talk about a little bit about, for your customers, how do they really sort of realize this vision of speed? And because you need the accuracy, you need the governance, you need quality data, because the data is bad. The LLMs is going to surface bad data. So how do you skin that cat? That's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, I think in our mission statement, Dave, for our practice, we say that we bring together potential of data and exploit the power of AI. Right? These two are there for sure, but in between there is a line called discipline of governance. I think that's where everything starts. So I feel that the foundation of anything is just the data governance, nothing else. So when I say data governance, we are talking about avoiding any pitfalls around the creation of data silos. First thing is when you talk about fragmentation or quality or trust on the data, it's all because everyone is doing their own bit with that same data, creating their own logics, but that logic is not captured anywhere, how that data is getting transferred. I think the whole point is how empowered your governance office is. Where a lot of orgs, they do have someone like the chief governance officer for data, but they are not so empowered because the business will say, no, I need something very urgent. I don't care about your process and I just want to implement it, right? I think that has to stop when we say we are actually really data-driven and governed organization, right? I think avoiding data silos, these are typical jargons that everyone uses, but how we really see doing is, I can take an example of our own PE firm for whom we are actually building our data platform. So though there are various components there, we have Snowflake there, we have Databricks there, we have AWS there, and also Azure. So all said and done, the governance is done by Purview. Okay, so Azure Purview is being used for governance. Though there is Databricks, there is Snowflake, and all are very strong in that area as well. But the key thing is the CDO who is actually brought in there is very clear in how the process have been implemented. and people are really educated in following that process. I think that's where the whole, I would say, you do the data governance in an Excel also, it is fine, but you have to have the process which will be followed every day and every time. That's the main thing. That's what
Yeah,
I
and
feel.
there's a lot of setup that has to be done. Just, there is no free lunch, right? You got to have
Right.
a proper data architecture. You got to be mature enough on your data and analytics stacks to be able to then put this technology on top of it. Because, agents are great at automating, but your data infrastructure needs to be there. So,
Yep.
look, I obviously believe the semantic layer does a lot in terms of bringing accuracy through context as well as governance. Whether you're doing traditional BI with tools or whether you're talking to your data or whether you have agents that are acting on that data. So, what are some of the other ways that you've seen your customers be able to sort of get to the point where they're confident enough to sort of really, pour gasoline on that fire, Rich? So you talk about accelerating, right? But how do you help your customers really get to that point where they have the confidence to unleash the data on a lot more people in the organization than they probably previously have?
I think one part is you got to continue to experiment and test and try things, right? I think and showcase the wins and the things you're learning. I think just having a mindset of just we're going to constantly experiment and keep pushing forward, right? I think it's just getting one foot in the future for sure, and all the way, because this is where we're going. So get comfortable with that. Get comfortable with this change that's coming. I think companies that I've seen that have done well are the ones who talk about it a lot and how it's going to change things and how it's going to help people too. I think there's a lot of fear around this technology still, and understandably in our industry. What's going to happen to my job? Is this going to automate me? Is this going to replace me? And I think that the companies who are out there talking about AI from a perspective of it's an accelerant to your career. It's something to help you do your job even better. It's going to unlock time for you to do other things. And seeing it as a tool, I think the companies that prepare their workforce like this and start having that sort of mindset inside the organization are going to be the ones that really thrive because they will face less resistance internally. At the end of the day, those organizations are made up of people, and you need all the people kind of looking in the same direction. And if there's not good communication from the top, from leadership about how this is going, what our goals are, how is this going to affect you personally, your career, your job, and how it's going to help you, I think that anybody who doesn't do that is leaving a lot of uncertainty out there. And I think that can end up being a form of, it creates resistance too to change inside an organization. So I think just things like, we were talking about AI literacy, just educating people, right? I think historically, you again, if you think about the old way, right? If you weren't a technical person, if you couldn't code, it was like a different language.
Hmm.
Totally, it actually is a different language, right? You
It
didn't know
is.
the language,
SQL is a
and so
language. Yeah.
exactly, so you don't know how to speak that language. It's like me trying to talk Hindi or any other
Hmm.
language that I can't speak. I don't know, right? It's impossible for me to communicate effectively. But that challenge has been really kind of it's been reduced a lot, right? Because now we can talk about the business problem and allow a lot of the language of technical language to be under the surface. It's still there. It's important, but we can communicate better inside an organization because we don't have these language barriers that we used to have from a technical perspective. And I think that the companies that focus on that and that this tool is now it's here to empower you, right? It is, you can do things that you could not do before. You can do things now that would have taken you a decade of education to do and learn how to do, and you can do it tomorrow. I think just opening people up to the potential and the possibilities of this, I think there's a big opportunity there still too, because I think a lot of people still think, oh, it's just a technical thing. It's out there. AI, what's it going to do for me? Even at the conferences, I was talking to people who were around the conferences, right? Not super technical people. They don't understand it. I'm just 5-minute conversation with them, like kind of opens their eyes like, wow, really? That's not the way I was thinking about it. I was more fearful of it, but this is more of an optimistic view. I just think that messaging from leadership can have a very positive impact on their company's ability to push forward and try new things. So yeah, I think it's just the messaging, the training, the literacy, get everybody up to speed on what this stuff is, and just keep experimenting. Try it, use it in your life, in your day-to-day job. how can this make you better at your job? No matter what you do, there's something out there that you can use to improve how you do your job and become more productive. So I think those are the things that if I was a leader in an organization, those are the kind of things I would be doing proactively. Obviously, getting all the technical skills as money as you can and get the right environment set up. But there's a whole bunch of organizational stuff you have to do as well to be able to get the most out of it. So
Yeah, the difference with this revolution, for me at least, is that this seems like there's a lot of emphasis on in the C-suite about adopting these technologies, right? It's a very top
yeah,
down. It's a very
Yeah,
top down, as opposed to like you never heard like a CIO say we need to have a data warehouse that is, that is elastic. It's like it's like
right,
we need a cloud data warehouse that's elastic. That didn't come down from the top, but you
right,
definitely hear in the C-suite is like, hey, what are we doing with Gen AI and
yeah,
LLMs? How are we
yeah.
using it? And we need to use that. Prashant, is that what you're seeing in your customer base too? Is it different, or am I seeing something?
no, absolutely. In fact, I want to qualify further that within Hexaware itself, right? So we always say that we are disrupting ourselves first. And as you said, exactly, it's coming top down. Keech, who is our CEO, he has mandated everyone in our learning goals. Now, that 20% of our goals are around learning, and there everyone has to be certified on one of these stacks, either Gen AI or doing something on Agentic AI. So that's how we disrupted ourselves. And then, of course, you would then create your use cases, either it is vertically aligned or specifically cutting across the verticals, right? So those use cases were defined, and that's how we created a library of agents which are already ready to be deployed. Now, when you asked about clients, I interact with many clients who either ask us to provide the roadmap for how you got trained or how you're doing the mass trainings for all your people. The second thing is, I have an example of a insurance client who, they already created their own private LLM almost a year back, but there is no adoption. Hardly they see, like, initially started with 30% very enthusiastic, workforce going on to that and, asking questions or getting their work done. Later on, it reduced to even less than 10%. So one is, getting literate on all these things, but it has to be a continuous process, and it also always has to come top down, and that's what we always see.
Yeah, it's like there's always a question of like how do you prove ROI in your analytics investment? And I always say, look, it's like, are people using it? It's like if your usage is up and to the right, you've done something right, and that may drive your costs up and to the right. But hey, there should be more people getting value out of data if they're asking more questions of the data. So I think that's a really sort of good benchmark for whether you're being successful, is whether people have adopted it, like you mentioned. Um, so okay, so let's close this out with a little bit of like I would love you guys to put your hats on, their future hats, and so where do you see this going? So I'll start with you, Rich. What's next? What do you think is what do you think? How do you think things will be different in a few years from now? I'm not going to say 5 years from now because that's way too long in our cycle. A couple years from now, what do you think? What do you think? How do you think things might be different?
I guess I wish I could predict the future accurately.
Well,
But
we'd all be much
I know,
richer
I
and
know.
probably not
I,
on
I
this
do think
podcast.
it's going to be the same. Like the way I think about it and the way I talk to people about it is, and I gave this example actually at your happy hour the other night at the joint happy hour you guys did 2 weeks ago. There was a woman there who was not. She was a journalist and she wasn't from our industry, and she was kind of asking me the same thing. My take is I feel like I gave her the example. I'm like, well, before 2000, you really didn't use the internet, and now you use it all the time, right? And I kind of think of it the same way. It's like if you're not somebody who is using AI right now, I think that's going to change. I think in some way you're going to be using it in a couple of years. I think of people in our industry are going to be using we're already using a lot, right? More than we probably have, but the average person, I think it's going to trickle down there too, and it's just going to be part of daily life the same way going online is. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I think interacting with agents and bots and things to help you in your life, I think it's going to become ubiquitous. So I think that's one thing that's going to happen. I'm also very interested in other things that have implications on this whole space. One thing that's true about the AI space is it's very hungry for energy. It consumes a lot of energy, and I'm just curious like what are the implications of all the things that are happening around the world too on energy supplies, because these things use a lot of energy. And so how will global energy impact the AI revolution? Because it's upstream from AI. You need a lot of energy and CPUs. You got to have the chips, right? You need to have the chips. So what's the global geopolitical landscape going to look like in the next couple of years? How's that going to affect AI? I think there's a real question there we don't know the answer to. That'll be interesting how all that plays out. I do think it's going to be everywhere. I think it's going to obviously change people's lives and in massive ways and in many people good ways. I think it's like any other major technology shift. There will be people who, have to change their skill sets. They have to upskill and they have to learn new things. And I also think I believe there will be an explosion of like new startups, because you're unlocking really smart people who don't have the technical skills to build stuff themselves, but now they have tools that can. And so I think you might see a lot of new, really interesting stuff to come out from people who are very creative, very intelligent. They have a very cool solution for an interesting problem, but they could never, because you can start these things with no cost. You don't need $1 million of funding anymore to build something. You don't need months of engineers' time. So these are the kind of things I see, like a big picture. I think it's really interesting. I'm really curious to see what the world's going to look like in 3 to 5 years. My job probably won't change very much. It's like I needed to automate emails and those kind of things. Not automate, but like how to just write emails faster, because that's a lot of what I do, right? But it can't automate me, I don't think yet. And
It can
that'll
make
be
you a lot
shocking
more
if
productive, for sure.
it definitely can. It's going to make me
It
more
does
productive.
already for me.
Yeah,
I'm addicted to these tools.
same.
It makes me better. How about you, Prashant?
Yeah.
What's your takeaway?
Yeah. So I think I will qualify with some tangible things. Like, for example, let's say a pod for a data, implementation is 10 people, for example, 10 roles. That will come down to 2 roles for sure in, coming days. I would say it should not be far away, maybe in less than a year. So 80% of that workforce is reduced. But how do I make sure that the revenue of Hexaware keeps going, right? So that will grow. Instead of creating 10 data lakes today, I might make 100 data lakes, right? At that time. So that way I can see it. And apart from that, I think more or less the new roles will be created because of this now. There's a lot of, responsible AI stuff doing, now there are forums being created just to make sure that we are really taking care of those things. So AI literacy has to go up. One very classic example I will quote Dave before we close. We have top 2 legal clients also with us. Okay, so I've seen them. They are doing analytics on how our entire journey. So the moment they hire someone from the legal college, so how they perform on their matters, right? That's being analyzed. But at the same time, in India, I've seen, because in India there are so many cases and the judges are less actually, so there are no judges to even work on it. Here the problem is we can automate and use AI into maybe analyzing the last cases which has happened in the past, and create some let's say inferences around it. But you cannot use AI to give the judgments. That has to be completely human driven. I think we'll have to balance it out. Maybe productivity gains from this has to be more, and then you have to really responsibly use in the right areas. That's what I see.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. It's like, look, the human doesn't go away in the equation. That ultimately, AI is the helper, but human needs to make that last final decision at the end of the point. So, I mean, someday
Yeah.
that won't be true, but at least for our lifetime, I hope it's true.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's human plus machine. All right.
Absolutely.
You guys are awesome. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you.
It's been a great discussion. And to
Yeah,
everybody
I
listening out
appreciate it.
there, stay data driven in this new AI agentic world. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Dave, for having us. Appreciate it.